The date was February 21, 1965, at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, New York. Malcolm X stood before a crowd of over 400 people, preparing to address the Organization of Afro-American Unity, the OAU. He adjusted the microphone, smiled slightly, and then, gunfire. 3 men, multiple shots, chaos. When the smoke cleared, Malcolm X was on the floor, shot about 21 times, pronounced dead at about 3:30 p.m. But decades later, one question still refuses to die. Who really killed Malcolm X? Was it the Nation of Islam, NOI? Was it the FBI? Or was it something far more orchestrated and hidden? Because if the truth is what Malcolm feared most, then maybe that's exactly what got him killed. Let's look at Malcolm's final days. Malcolm X had never been more exposed, or more dangerous to the powers around him. After splitting from the Nation of Islam, NOI, in March 1964, he was a man alone. He had built his fame under Elijah Muhammad, but by 1965 he was a threat to the nation's credibility, a target of the FBI's COINTELPRO, a global figure advocating for black rights on an international stage. In his final year, Malcolm founded 2 new organizations. 1. Muslim Mosque Incorporated, a spiritual reformation. And 2. Organization of Afro-American Unity, OAU, modeled after the United Nations, advocating for human rights and black liberation. He no longer believed in strict separation between black and white. He was reaching across racial and religious lines, and that made him very dangerous. In a letter written weeks before his death, he said, "I'm probably a dead man already," and he wasn't wrong. The assassination took place at the Audubon Ballroom on February 21, 1965, at about 3 p.m. Malcolm X stepped onto the stage to speak at a meeting for the OAU. Just minutes into his address, a man shouted from the audience, "Get your hand out of my pocket." Malcolm turned his head. The distraction was deliberate. Gunfire erupted. A sawed-off shotgun struck him in the chest, followed by pistol rounds from 2 accomplices. Eyewitnesses reported total chaos. Chairs overturned. People screaming and running. Children crying. 3 men were apprehended. 1. Talmadge Hayer, aka Thomas Hagen, caught at the scene and later confessed. 2. Norman 3X Butler, later known as Muhammad Abdulaziz, denied involvement. And 3. Thomas 15X Johnson, later known as Khalil Islam, who also denied involvement. Despite Hayer's testimony that the other 2 were innocent, all 3 were convicted of murder in 1966. It was a crime that never added up. For a couple of years, critics and researchers noted major problems with the official story. First, poor police presence at the event, despite known death threats. Second, lack of FBI intervention even though Malcolm was under constant surveillance. Third, flawed eyewitness accounts, with many witnesses intimidated or silenced. And the most damning of all? The 2 men convicted alongside Hayer were not even in the building. In 2021, 55 years after Malcolm's death, Aziz and Islam were officially exonerated. The Manhattan Day cited newly discovered evidence and the failure to disclose exculpatory evidence. So if 2 of the 3 weren't even there, who were the real killers? And who made sure we never found out? Was it the FBI's COINTELPRO? A silent hand in the dark? To understand the forces that may have orchestrated Malcolm X's assassination, we must look at COINTELPRO, the FBI's covert counterintelligence program. COINTELPRO wasn't law enforcement. It was sabotage. Run by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, its goal was to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. Malcolm X was at the top of their watch list. For a couple of years, the FBI surveilled him, wiretapped his phones, infiltrated his organizations and monitored his speeches. They feared his influence, especially after he began linking the U.S. civil rights struggle to international human rights. Malcolm was reaching beyond domestic activism. He was talking to African leaders, to the UN, calling for the U.S. to be held accountable for its treatment of Black Americans. That made him dangerous, not just to the NOI but to the U.S. government. And here's the chilling part. Sources alleged that the FBI knew Malcolm's life was in danger. They had intelligence from informants within the Nation of Islam warning of an imminent attack. Yet they did nothing. Was it negligence? Or deliberate non-intervention, knowing the hit was coming and letting it happen? This is where the lines blur. Was it the Nation of Islam? A betrayal from within? After Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam in 1964, he became their greatest critic. He publicly condemned Elijah Muhammad for fathering multiple children with teenage secretaries, exposing the man who once mentored him. Malcolm's words were direct. He was the only man I ever feared, and I don't fear any man. Following his departure, tensions escalated violently. His house in Queens was firebombed with his family inside. He received dozens of death threats from NOI members. Mosques began labeling him a traitor, someone who had defied the messenger. In the months before his murder, several NOI officials, including key figures in the Newark Mosque, allegedly plotted to silence him. The man who confessed to pulling the trigger, Talmadge Hayer, was a known member of that mosque. This suggests a deep intra-organizational conspiracy. But here's the twist. Even Hayer admitted that others were involved. Men who were never arrested. Some believe the NOI ordered the hit. Others argue only a few rogue members acted, and the leadership knew nothing. Still, the question lingers. Was it a personal vendetta? Or was the Nation of Islam used as a weapon by someone else? Was it a perfect cover-up? Let's look at the aftermath. Malcolm was killed in a known venue. The Audubon Ballroom had no meaningful security, even after known threats. The NYPD had pulled back surveillance detail just days before. FBI surveillance tapes were lost. Wiretaps on NOI officials went missing. Key files about Malcolm's assassination were heavily redacted or sealed for decades. Innocent men were jailed. Aziz and Islam spent a combined 42 years in prison. The real shooters from Newark Mosque walked free, possibly protected. And the final insult? The U.S. government only admitted wrongdoing after the men had aged, the truth had blurred, and most of the players had died. So who killed Malcolm X? Was it the Nation of Islam, seeking revenge for betrayal? The FBI using its covert power to eliminate a threat? Or a calculated fusion of both, where each side benefited from Malcolm's silence? Maybe the real answer lies in what no one wanted him to finish. Now let's look at the reopening. Truth in the age of documentaries. For over 5 decades, the official narrative around Malcolm X's death remained largely unchanged, until one thing shook it all. A Netflix documentary. In 2020, Who Killed Malcolm X? A 6-part docuseries by historian Abdurrahman Muhammad reignited public scrutiny over the case. The series revealed Talmadge Hayer's affidavit from 1978, naming the real killers, all members of Nation of Islam's Newark Mosque. Evidence that Muhammad Abdul Aziz and Khalil Islam were innocent. A proof that authorities ignored critical leads, possibly to protect their informants or allies. The public pressure was so strong that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office reopened the case. In November 2021, Aziz and Islam were formally exonerated. The city and state of New York paid a $36 million settlement to the wrongfully convicted men. This wasn't just an apology, it was an admission that the system failed, and someone let it happen. But even as the legal chapter closed, the deeper truth remains buried. Next, we'll look into the theories that still stand as to why Malcolm was killed. After all the dust has settled, we're left with not just suspects, but motives. Let's break them down. Theory 1. The Nation of Islam ordered it. Motive, being betrayal, embarrassment and fear of exposure. Evidence to support this theory. Threats, known shooters from NOI Mosque, Malcolm's home firebombed. The weakness of this theory, however, is the lack of proof that Elijah Muhammad directly ordered the hit. Theory 2. The FBI knew and let it happen. Motive. Eliminate a rising black leader who linked U.S. civil rights to international human rights. Evidence. COINTELPRO memos, withdrawn police protection, redacted files. The weakness of this theory is that there's no direct link between the FBI and the shooters, only circumstantial silence. Theory 3. Both work toward the same goal. Motive. Shared interest in silencing Malcolm. Possibility. FBI had informants in NOI, knew of the plot and let it play out, ensuring plausible deniability. Legacy of this theory. The perfect assassination, carried out by one side, enabled by another. This is the theory many experts lean toward. In the final months of his life, Malcolm had evolved beyond anyone's expectations. He was criticizing both the U.S. government and internal black leadership. Promoting Pan-Africanism, uniting civil rights with global movements. Advocating for human rights, not just civil rights, a shift that brought international scrutiny. I'm not anti-American. I'm anti-oppression, Malcolm X once said. And for that, many believe he became too powerful. In one of his final interviews he predicted, "I know that they will kill me soon. I've said things that will not be forgiven." Malcolm didn't just die. He was silenced, in public, in daylight, in front of his own people. So again, who killed Malcolm X? Was it the fury of a religious betrayal? The cold logic of political sabotage? Or a convergence of threats he could never outrun? We may never know the full truth, but we know this. 1. The wrong men were jailed. 2. The right questions were buried. And 3. The system, built to deliver justice, chose silence. And now it's your turn. Do you believe the full truth about Malcolm X's murder will ever come out? Or is it already lost to history? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more crime breakdowns that challenge the official narrative, subscribe. Because the truth doesn't just reveal itself. It must be uncovered.